Hi, this is Sarah Taylor from Louisville, Kentucky. I love listening to Scandal Water while I'm in the car driving to and from different places. I love it.
Welcome to Scandal Water,
where we cover the stories that have captivated the entertainment world.
I'm Candy, a longtime educator and community theater actress.
And I'm Ashley, a writer and co-founder of a local theater group.
We're two friends who share a love of entertainment.
From true crime docuseries, to blockbuster movies, to classic TV, to Broadway shows, and everything in between.
Each week, I share a compelling story related to pop culture.
And I chime in using my trivia junkie brain.
We stick to the facts until it's time to settle into our armchairs at the end.
Then we're simply two women with a strong cup of tea and even stronger opinions.
We're Scandal Water.
And if this sounds like your cup of tea,
follow the show on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel.
Oh, it's that time of day. Tune in and hear what the ladies say. It's time to bend your ear when the silver screen appears. Stories about the stage and screen and everything in between. So come on and join the fun. The curtain opens in 3, 2, 1.
Hello, Ashley.
hello.
We are back for another big holiday anniversary.
Yes.
Another fun one. Rather than tell what it is, though, right from the start, how about we start with a little quiz?
I love a quiz.
You do love a quiz. This is going to give it away right from the beginning, but that's okay. That's all right.
Well, the title that they've clicked
Well,
on is
that's
given.
true. That's
You always
true.
do this stuff like,
I do.
we're not going to tell you. I'm like, Candy,
They
they already
saw
know.
the title.
But it's okay. We're going to humor you.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
All right, number one. What is the famous phrase that Charlie Brown always says?
Good grief.
Yes, nice. All right. Now, some of these are going to be hard.
Okay.
Okay. So it's okay if you don't know all these.
Okay.
All right. So from what work do we know the character Charlie Brown?
Peanuts.
Of course,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to give you a little background here for
Okay.
a second. He was actually introduced in the Peanuts column when it was syndicated, and it ended up running from 1950 to 2000.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Charles Schulz's original cartoon was called Lil Folks.
Lil folks.
Yeah, so before it was Peanuts, it was Lil Folks. Once it was Peanuts and it was syndicated, it became one of the most popular comic strips ever, running in over 2,600 newspapers and also developing into a massive multimedia franchise and marketing juggernaut, as they say.
Juggernaut is the right word.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, this is a tricky one.
Okay.
Which of these characters appeared first, second, and third in Peanuts? Basically, put them in order.
Okay.
Okay. Schroeder, Pigpen, Lucy.
Lucy Schroeder Pigpen.
Actually, Schroeder appeared in 1951, Lucy came out in 1952, and Pigpen came out in 1954. Isn't that interesting that Lucy wasn't there from the very beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah, that surprised me. All right. Charles Schulz believed that the changes he made with one particular character really helped his comic strip to increase in popularity. We're talking significantly.
Okay.
Which character would that be?
Snoopy.
You are 100%
Yeah.
correct.
Woo! What'd he do?
Yes. Well, this is from the Charles M. Schulz Museum website. Quote, the rise in Snoopy's popularity in the 1960s had a direct correlation to his evolution from a four-legged pet to a two-legged, highly imaginative
The
and
Red Baron.
equal character in
Yes.
the strip,
Yes.
which allowed Schulz to take his storylines in increasingly new directions.
Snoopy's adorable.
He is adorable. But I thought that was interesting because, in case you haven't figured this out, part of the reason why we're starting this quiz is because it's also providing a little context and a little background information. All right. Well, we end with a fun one.
Okay.
This is the performance question. Either do your best impersonation of one of the Peanuts characters or give us a small portion of one of the famous Peanuts songs.
Famous Peanuts songs. What a do do ding 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 ding.
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then that's Snoopy. Good grief is Charlie Brown.
Nice.
There you go.
Thank you.
I did all of it.
You
all of
did.
it.
You went above and beyond.
And one of my very first roles was Schroeder's the one that plays the piano, right?
Yes.
I played Schroeder in my elementary school.
Did you really?
I did.
Okay, what
yes.
was the production?
I have no idea.
Okay.
It may have just been one of those things where it's
Like
a
a
little
little
scene.
skit, yeah.
A little scene, and I was Schroeder.
Okay, well, since we've already talked about that, and do you have any other background with Charlie Brown? Were you
Not
a big
much.
fan of Peanuts? Or
Yes, but just not something like rabid fan like I am with Goonies, nothing like that. Just like they existed existed in my world. I read them. I thought they were adorable. Yes, we existed. We coexisted pleasantly.
I'm kind of the same way. In fact, it makes me think about how very popular Peanuts must have been, that I didn't actually follow them, and yet it always felt like they were always
They were
around
always
you.
there.
Yeah, I mean, you always saw Snoopy characters and all the characters from Peanuts.
Woodstock.
Absolutely. So huge, really huge. Well, with the theme this month being holiday anniversaries, today we are celebrating the 60th anniversary of A Charlie Brown Christmas, which first aired on December 9th of 1965.
Wow.
By the way, that makes it one of the oldest Christmas specials in U.S. history.
That's amazing.
Yeah. I did not do a deep dive into this, but I searched a little bit, and I think this is accurate. Only a handful of Christmas shows preceded this. I did see a few sources that mentioned Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol came out in 1962.
Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol.
Yes, and a couple of these sources named that as the first ever animated Christmas special that was produced for TV. In 1964, we did have a special holiday episode of the Flintstones that was called Christmas Flintstone. So that was another special Christmas.
Is Rudolph before this?
You are absolutely correct.
Okay.
I saw that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer also came out in 1964. And then 1965 is A Charlie Brown Christmas.
So it's the next year.
It is one of the earliest Christmas specials. Yeah. A very simple summary found on IMDb reads, depressed at the commercialism he sees around him, Charlie Brown tries to find a deeper meaning to Christmas.
That's a very succinct summary.
Absolutely. So what are a few memories you have of the special?
The big memory is the dance that they do and Linus's monologue.
Yes.
That's what I remember from it.
Yes.
And that's pretty much all I had remembered because we both rewatched it for this episode. And that's the two that stuck out to me.
Yeah. Those hit me as well. Absolutely. I think a few of the other things that really struck me, because I was looking at it I'm analyzing and I'm looking at it more deeply. I started to notice the characters themselves, the characterization, and how these are such young children and yet they're so wise.
I thought that too.
Yeah. Linus is the voice of wisdom.
Yes. These guys are smart. And when Lucy was naming off all of the, do you have these phobias and this phobia? I'm like, how old are you? Are you like 8 and you're knowing all of these phobias? And that's the fear of the ocean. That's the fear of everything. Charlie's like, that's the one. I'm like, I feel you, Charlie. That is the one.
I had the same
They were having deep thoughts.
Deep thoughts. And Charlie Brown self-diagnosing himself. I'm depressed and here's why.
Yes.
And I'm like, man, your self-awareness
is off the chart.
Fantastic.
And Linus is like, of all the Charlie Browns, you're the Charlie Brownest. Only you could take this time of year of good, whatever he says, of goodness and make it a bad thing or whatever he says.
And it's funny too, because I guess it's funny. We've said this a million times that you don't really have a sense of history. Like a lot of times something will sound like so far into the past and then you'll be like, it really wasn't that far. So part of me was like, oh, back in 1965, they were talking about the commercialization of Christmas. That feels like something we talk about all the time now. And it's like,
it's not gotten better, Charlie.
Right. Apparently this is something that was still an issue then and still an issue now.
Yep.
One last comment was how, I don't know, it was just such a satisfying, sweet ending.
Yes.
It was moving.
It was.
With them singing
Yes.
together.
And the little heads like, blah, blah.
Charlie Brown joined in.
Yes.
And I was like, okay.
We get the nostalgia.
All right, well, let's talk about how it all came to be. So as we've already alluded, cartoonist Charles Schulz, who, by the way, had the nickname Sparky. Everybody called him Sparky in the interviews. I thought that was adorable. But anyway, he created this comic strip called Little Folks that ran in Minnesota's St. Paul Pioneer Press from 1947 to 1950. It was about young children, and there was a character named Charlie Brown, but it's not the comic strip that we think about, okay? Now, this comic strip was syndicated under the name Peanuts, a name that Charles Schulz did not like. That is, he did not want to call it that. In fact, I believe he advocated to keep the name, and then when they wanted to change it, he had a few suggestions, but
Why would they want to change it?
One of the suits, they thought it would be a better name, I guess, but one of the suits came up with Peanuts, and it came from that idea of the Peanut Gallery. Charles Schulz did not like that name.
I was thinking they were calling the little kids like, oh, little peanuts, little guys.
It probably had a dual meaning to it. Yeah, but that's what it was called, and it did debut in newspapers starting in October of 1950. So by the time period that we're talking about now, the mid-1960s, it's now huge. It has really grown in popularity, okay? And then in 1965, something unexpected and exciting happened for the Peanuts team. I'm going to play a short clip from this documentary, which is a very short documentary, by the way. It's called The Making of a Charlie Brown Christmas, and it's going to give us just a little bit more information about what it is that happened.
In April of 1965, John Allenson called from McCann Erickson, the advertising agency in New York, and said,
"We have a client, Coca-Cola, who wonders if you have a Christmas special."
I said, "Oh, absolutely."
They did not have a Christmas special. But Lee Middleton said sure, figuring he would have several weeks to work up an idea.
And they said, "Could you please have an outline to us by next Monday?" I said, "Absolutely, no problem." So I called Charles Schulz on the phone, and I said, "I think I just sold a Charlie Brown Christmas." And he said, "Well, what in the world is that?" And I said, "Well, it's something you're going to write tomorrow."
Oh my goodness, how many things happen in our lives, in history, where you're like, do you have this? Absolutely I do. Can you have it tomorrow? Yeah,
Sure.
because I've already got it, of course. And you're going home going, oh my goodness.
Yeah. So the fella who was speaking first, the one who was speaking in first person, that is television producer and documentary filmmaker Lee Mendelson, who was the producer for A Charlie Brown Christmas. And so to fill in a little bit more of that backstory from a 2015 Smithsonian Magazine article, here's a little explanation. Quote, "The Coke and Pepsi advertising wars of the 1960s."
Another good episode we should do.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, keep going.
Took to the television airwaves as the central battlefield. The Pepsi generation came into vogue in 1963, and in 1964, PepsiCo doubled its volume of advertisements, increased its television budget by 30%, and tripled its market research budget. That same year, it teamed with Disney to present It's a Small World in the Pepsi Pavilion at the World's Fair in New York. As the next Perry in the advertising wars, Coca-Cola, McCann Erickson executive John Allen told Mendelson, wanted to sponsor a family-friendly Christmas special in 1965. Could he produce a Charlie Brown one?
So wait a minute. So a story about commercialism was started
yes,
through an advertising war commercialism.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And as we heard, Mendelson said yes without Charles Schulz having
Any
any idea. In the documentary, it went on to explain that they flew into action. We have Lee Mendelson, the producer, and of course, Charles Schulz. They also reached out to another man named Bill Melendez. Now, he's going to play a big role, so let me just give you a tiny bit of backstory on Bill. Bill had a background doing animation work for places like Disney and Warner Brothers. And about 5 years before this, he had been hired to do the animation for some Ford TV commercials featuring members of the Peanuts gang.
Okay.
So Lee Mendelson, I'm going to use their first names just to simplify this.
Sure.
So Lee, the TV producer I've mentioned, he saw Bill's work and hired him for this small Peanuts project. And through all of this, Bill's work also caught the attention of Charles Schulz, who, by the way, loved it, and spoiler alert, would end up trusting nobody but Bill with all future projects. Okay, so these three guys basically become a team. They become a team. Okay, so moving back into the timeline, right after this contact from Coca-Cola where Lee says, sure, we can do a special.
Do that.
We've got it. Yeah, it says in the documentary that Bill flew up and met with Lee and Charles Schulz, and all three of these men set about trying to come up with a plan for this Christmas special. Now, I will say a couple of sources said that it was just Charles Schulz and Lee that did it, but in the documentary,
They include Bill.
They included Bill. So I'm going with that version. Okay. So one article said that it was Lee who suggested the show focus around a sad little Christmas tree, taking some inspiration from Hans Christian Andersen's The Fir Tree. Okay. Now, in the documentary, we hear Bill give a lot of credit to Charles Schulz. He commented Charles Schulz was not just an amazing cartoonist. This man was also an amazing storyteller, very, very creative, and and he made it sound as though a lot of these ideas were kind of flowing from Charles. But basically, in a single day, the three men quickly put together.
That's all they had. It
Right.
had to be a single day.
Absolutely. And it was a simple outline. In fact, the Smithsonian article said it was a one-page triple spaced treatment. That's how they referred to it.
Wow.
And they sent it off to Coca-Cola, who almost immediately approved it.
Coca-Cola, did you understand that they were talking about commercialism?
Isn't that funny? Now, once they had the green light from Coca-Cola, which is super exciting, they had no idea what they had just done to themselves because now they only had 6 months to create this half-hour animated special, something none of them had ever done before.
Oh, no.
Okay?
Oh, no.
Now, they're very excited, no idea what they're doing. In fact, a historian named Mark Evanier commented in the documentary that creating an animated Christmas special in 6 months is not humanly possible.
No. I mean, what we learned from Bluey, look how long they taken. Those episodes were like 7 minutes.
Yes,
Remember? It took them forever.
It's a big thing. And something that they pointed out that I thought was so smart. They said, remember, this is the first time they've ever done this. Peanuts has been around forever. It's hugely popular. People love it. These characters are iconic
And
to
now
the
you're
public.
bringing them to life.
But yes, this is the first time you're putting them in a television animated special. You're having to make every single decision about how are we
my
going to
goodness.
translate it from
Flat surface.
yes, this comic strip to animated film. Every movement, character development, how you want it to sound, all of it. So it was huge, incredibly daunting task. All right, about bringing those characters to life. They did such cute things.
They did.
They did such cute things. One decision they made, which ended up being very important to the work, was they decided that rather than do what people would normally do during this time period, which would be to cast adult professional voiceover actors to do the character voices.
They got kids.
They got kids.
That's what
They
Bluey
got
did too.
kids. Yeah. But this is groundbreaking in
Yeah, oh, yeah.
1965.
Oh, yeah.
This was huge. So they did cast professional child actors to do the primary roles of Charlie Brown and Linus because they had so much dialogue. Still children, but at least they had some background in
Acting.
film work and acting. But for the rest, they basically just found kids.
Wow.
Yes. For example, Sally Dreyer, who I thought this was so cute. She said she found out years later that Lee referred to her as the original Lucy. That's how he would refer to her. But anyway, Sally Dreyer was only 8 years old when she ended up doing those voice recordings.
So I was right. She was 8. Saying,
She was,
Do
yes.
you suffer from this or that?
Yes.
7 or 8.
Well, she got the job because her older sister worked for Lee, and this older sister was like, Sally, send in a tape. I want you to be considered. And of course, she got chosen. Some of the other voice actors were kids who lived in Bill's Southern California neighborhood.
Yep.
Almost none of them had ever done any acting or voiceover work before. And, well, we'll find out later that some of them couldn't read.
Oh, so they'd have to tell them their line and they repeat it?
Yes, but actually it's interesting because that was kind of a big thing. I saw it in a few different articles where they would say the kids couldn't even read and they would have to feed them their lines. But what I found was that this came actually from Sally Dreyer. I found an interview that she gave. She, again, was the original Lucy. And I also found another voice actor named Stephen Shea. He ends up doing the voice of Linus later. His brother, Christopher Shea, was the original Linus.
Oh, okay.
So both of these two gave insights where what they said was that basically one of the men in the trio, usually it was Bill, for I'm thinking of across many specials, definitely for a Charlie Brown Christmas, it was Bill. Okay, but they said that he would feed them the lines because they're children.
To
And
tell them how to say
he
it.
wanted them to give the exact expression.
Yep.
It wasn't, and some of the wording was hard and the kids wouldn't understand the wording, to be honest, but many times it was just about, I want it to be this way. Yeah. And so they would echo him. But a 2024 Parade magazine article said that Charles and Bill hoped that using real children's voices in the special would help convey the innocence of the cartoons, and they believed it would not only make the show more realistic, but also funnier and a little edgier. You know, the fact that, well, I think like Lucy giving all of those psychological terms, you know, there's just something
saying,
about a child's voice.
Get the disinfectant.
Yes. I'm digressing for just a moment.
Okay.
But since I brought it up, let me just quickly say, Stephen Shea, remember we said his brother Christopher was the original Linus? So the reason he got the job later was that at some point down the road, Christopher started sounding older.
Yeah.
And so
They
they
needed-
brought in his younger brother because tonally,
They sounded the same. You know, they did that with Coco as well. The little boy that played Miguel in Coco, I think they did something, I forget what it was, but at some point he had grown out of the role and they cast his little brother to play Miguel because they
makes
had the
sense.
same kind of voice.
right, they sound similar. Along these same lines, Bill Melendez, the animator, he did the voice work for Snoopy and Woodstock. Yes, to create the sounds that you hear in the show, he would record gibberish and then speed it up.
Ah.
And across the specials, he would use different speeds to help distinguish Snoopy's dialogue from Woodstock's. All right, well, we have discussed one characteristic that set this Christmas special apart, the use of these real children's voices as the character roles. When we come back, we're going to talk about a few other things that set it apart. Let's take a break.
There's not much we love more than spilling the tea with you every Tuesday. So, we've decided to occasionally take a moment to thank a few of our supporters who help make this possible.
Along with the fun, producing a weekly podcast also brings with it more time and expense than you might expect. Your financial generosity in becoming a member through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon, both of which can be found on our website or social media accounts, allows us to keep creating these episodes.
We'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to one of our current members, Jennifer R. As a thank you, Jennifer and anyone else who becomes a Scandal Water supporter will receive perks like discounts on merch and access to exclusive bonus content such as our minisodes.
If you'd like to hear your name on that roster, become a member using one of the links on social media or on our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com.
Until then, we lift our cup to you, Jennifer.
Cheers! And we are back. Just to reiterate this point, again, this is the very first animated special that they are doing using the Peanuts gang. And so everything they're doing is basically establishing their future patterns or procedures. And so one of the things that came out quite a bit was that Charles Schulz, you know, I mean, these are his babies. You know, he'd been doing this comic strip for quite some time. And rather than let CBS executives decide things, or
He wanted to decide.
yeah, he had a very, very strong hand in many of the decisions, most of the decisions.
Well, he's
I
the
would say.
creator. I would hope so.
Absolutely, yes. So another thing that they wanted to do, something that was just normal for the time period, was to include a laugh track.
Oh, I'm so glad he didn't.
He refused.
Oh, I'm so glad.
He would not let them put
Thank goodness.
a laugh track in. Yeah. According to that same Parade article I mentioned before, in Charles Schulz's biography, Lee Mendelsohn had recalled that Charles was against the laugh track because he wanted to keep the show moving along. He thought it would slow things down. And as the article phrased it, Sparky said at a staff meeting during production that the network should, quote, let the people at home enjoy the show at their own speed in their own way.
Yes.
And then he promptly walked out of the room, ending the argument.
There you go.
Yeah, he was like,
My way
this
or
is
the
my
highway."
decision. Exactly. So obviously music plays a very important role in the Christmas special, and of course all of the Peanut specials that followed. But here's the backstory on that. Lee Mendelsohn had been working with Charles Schulz on a documentary called A Boy Named Charlie Brown that featured a soundtrack of jazz music composed by a man named Vince Guaraldi. Now this is in the past, prior to this, okay? Although Charles Schulz reportedly had said he was not a jazz fan, he did like Guaraldi's music.
Yeah, I like it too.
Yeah, and he felt like it would be perfect for a Charlie Brown Christmas. Specifically, he thought that the unique sound of Vince's compositions, along with a mix of traditional Christmas hymns, would create the perfect, quote, bubbly, childlike tone for the show, okay? This trio, of course, did use Vince's music, and I saw quotes, I think, from all three men over the span of time where they talked about how important Vince Guaraldi's music would end up being to Peanuts. I mean, they really gave him a lot of credit, and they used Vince for all their future Peanuts television projects until Vince passed away from a heart attack many years later. Talking specifically about this Christmas show, though, one of Vince's famous Peanuts songs was the iconic Linus and Lucy piece. That's the one you
That's the
started.
dance?
Yep, that's the one you started to hum. It had actually made its debut in something, they used it in something else, but this was the first time it was on TV. So really, in terms of the public
Yeah,
becoming
knowing it.
aware of
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
this was it. And then there was another iconic song that came out of the Christmas special, except this one had vocals. It was the only one with vocals.
Is it Christmas time is here? That one?
What are your thoughts about that song?
I mean, I don't know. It's just iconic.
It
Do I
is.
like it or not like it? It just is. It's just, I don't know.
It's so funny because again, you don't think about these things until you're researching something or talking about it. And suddenly I was like, what an interesting song that actually, it makes me feel so Christmassy, and yet
It's so sad.
it's so flat sounding. It's very,
so sad.
yes, but I love it.
Yeah.
I do love it. So then I ran across this little special. Several years ago, CBS Sunday Mornings did a feature on a Charlie Brown Christmas. And in one part of that segment, they spoke about that song, now iconic. And I loved this backstory.
Oh, wow.
So I'm got to share a little piece of this with you. I think you're going to love it too. I will say what they said was it did start out as an instrumental piece, again, created by Vince. But then Lee Mendelsohn decided that the Christmas special should include at least one song with lyrics.
Yeah.
So here's a little excerpt that shares a bit of what happened next.
The song was just piano, bass, and drums, but Mendelssohn thought that it should be sung. With time running out, he wrote the words himself.
Lee just dashed off some lyrics, like basically on the back of a paper bag or something.
The children's singing voices belonged to Carrie Cedarblade, Dan Bernhardt, Dave Willett, and a few other members of the St. Paul's Episcopal Church Youth Choir in San Rafael, California.
It's fun to work with the kids, and this group here is fabulous.
The recordings you made have probably been listened to more than many of the biggest pop singers.
Yeah, this starts to get a little discouraging when you put it that way. Because, that $15 ain't getting any bigger.
The kids got $5 for each recording session. No royalties, not even their names in the credits.
And I mean, it's true that things were a little catch as catch can and haphazard, but you got to hang out with people, and it was late at night.
And to then just be a part of this iconic show that really touches people for years and years and years. It's humbling in that way.
Isn't it amazing?
That is. And you never know what things are going to become. So those poor little guys just got $5. They're not even listed. And he said, your song has been listened to more than some pop singers.
Yeah,
That's
but
amazing.
to be part of that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
I
amazing.
love it. It was so cute at the end of the segment. They brought those three men together and had them sing it again
Oh.
all those years later.
Did they sound good?
They sounded pretty good. Grown men's voices.
Yeah, that's a
now.
little different.
Yeah. But back to that other point that they made, Lee spoke about this in several interviews as well. He just threw those lyrics down. I don't know that he even thought they were going to use those lyrics. I think he thought, like, I'm throwing a few ideas on paper. Somebody will now take these and
make it
flesh
better.
it out and improve it. And it was almost like they just took what he wrote and
He
were
just
like,
said,
here's
and
your
go,
song.
go,
yes,
go.
yes, we're in a hurry.
Yeah.
Let's do it. No, but anyway, I thought that was the cutest. One other thing that came up time and time again that was different about this Christmas special was the religious overtones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And that was thanks to Charles Schulz. He was a very religious man, and he insisted from the beginning that he wanted there to be some religious overtones. Particularly, he wanted something to be there about the nativity. And so there were some concerns in the beginning. In the documentary, his wife said that they were concerned, would the advertisers go for it? There was a little bit of concern about the advertisers. But the producers agreed, sure, let's do a nativity scene to honor Charles's wishes. But then when they saw the script, and it was finished, Lee said he realized the show now included an entire minute-long speech directly from the New Testament. And so at that point, Lee and some of the other members of the production team again had this meeting with Charles, and they called it an argument. They said, you know, their point was they thought this was supposed to be more focused on entertainment. They were worried that being so overtly religious might narrow the audience, might scare off advertisers. But Charles Schulz held firm, and he wasn't going to do it if they didn't leave that in there. And so it remained, and here it is all these years later.
And it's one of the most famous segments.
It is one of the most famous segments. And I can't remember the source. This was just something I saw in passing, but it was interesting. One writer commented that for many kids nowadays, it may be the first time they've heard the scripture.
Yes.
Yeah. So the reception. Again, Lee Mendelson. One last quote. He shares how it was received when it was finished.
Oh, when it was finished, we all thought we had ruined Peanuts. It seemed very slow, and it was too religious, blah, blah. We didn't know. And I went back with great fear to CBS, and I showed it to them. It was a week before it was to go on the air, and they hated it. The two top people just hated it. They said, you know, that it's too slow and it's very religious. In those days, that was a big deal, you know, back in the 60s. And it's not particularly fun. And I was just devastated, you know, because I didn't think it was that good either. And the head guy there said, well, we're going to have to run it. It's scheduled, but unfortunately, you know, there probably aren't going to be any more. And then they said, there's a guy from Time Magazine downstairs that wants to look at it. And they said, but we don't dare show it to him. We don't like it. I said, well, it's going to be worse if you don't show it to him. So we go down, and there's a fella in there and me, and we sit and we watch it, and he doesn't say a word, and he gets up and leaves.
Oh, no.
So I come home absolutely with my tail between my legs, and I figure we are doomed. Day before the show, Time Magazine comes out, and this fella writes the most glowing review you could imagine. Said it should run forever, which shocked all of us. Then it goes on the air and gets like a 45 share, and in those days there were only 3 networks. I think we had half the United States tune in who had television. And that Monday, the CBS fella called up and he said, well, we're going to buy 4 more Charlie Brown shows, but I wanted you to know that my aunt in New Jersey didn't like it either. That was his justification.
My aunt in New Jersey. The one lady, okay.
So isn't that interesting?
That just shows you that sometimes the people who are in charge don't always know the heart of the people who are watching the content, because it resonated with them. And it was sweet and it was precious, and it just really resonated.
Well, and it was interesting that he showed it to that Times reporter
who didn't say anything. That he actually thought that person left hating it, and then it came back saying this should be shown every year. This is beautiful, basically beautiful. Yeah, and that was a big deal then. Time Magazine giving you a positive review, that's huge.
That's huge, absolutely. Just to reiterate, I know Lee said that in that little clip, but I'll give you a little bit more information. On Thursday, December 9th, 1965, over 15 million households tuned in to watch A Charlie Brown Christmas. It was, I mean, you only had 3 TV stations. It was nearly half of the American television sets were tuned to that network.
That shows you how popular they were.
Absolutely. And again, you heard Lee say they immediately ordered 4 more specials. That's big. Also, less than a week later, CBS announced it would rebroadcast the special the following Christmas. Now, they didn't change anything except they removed Coca-Cola from the opening and closing sequences because they were no longer sponsoring it.
So Coke just said one and done.
Yeah, they had moved on to other things.
Okay.
But I'm going to follow that thread for just a second because I thought this was cool. If you watch A Charlie Brown Christmas, you see in the beginning they're skating on the pond and they're playing basically Catch the Whip, or Crack the Whip, I think is the name of that little game that they play. And you see Charlie Brown goes off and he hits a tree and then snow falls on him. You saw that Linus was part of it, but you never saw where he landed. Well, the reason it's removed in the version that we see nowadays is
because
he
drinking a Coke?
He goes off and hits a Coca-Cola sign.
Oh.
So that's what got removed.
Okay.
Yeah. Back to this. In 1966, A Charlie Brown Christmas won an Emmy, and it also won a Peabody Award.
Wow.
Yep. And this is cool. The success of A Charlie Brown Christmas actually changed the network's primetime philosophy. prior to this, CBS actually did very few specials. The people who were in charge believed that they were very successful, by the way, and they thought part of their success was because they always kept their programming very predictable. They tried not to interrupt their programming. They said they catered to what they called the habit viewers.
Yeah, yeah.
So everything would be at the same time, every
Routine.
week, same night, and they thought that was working well for them because at that time, CBS was coming in first in the ratings, and they're like, okay, what we're doing
Is working.
it's work. Yeah. Now, after A Charlie Brown Christmas came out, the following year, CBS telecast a second primetime animated holiday special, the adaptation of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And then in 1969, it aired Frosty the Snowman.
Aw.
And according to the Smithsonian article I mentioned earlier, by the mid-1970s, CBS aired about 80 to 90 television specials a year, as did the other networks.
Yeah, they're all catching on.
Yeah, so they realized we can do these other special things.
So it made history, it changed history. It's huge.
Right, right. A Charlie Brown Christmas ended up running annually for 35 straight years on CBS until ABC acquired the rights in 2001, which was a year after Charles Schulz died. And then it aired on ABC for years until 2020 when Apple bought all of the Peanuts specials.
Yes.
And at that time, they broke the tradition of the annual showing of A Charlie Brown Christmas. Now you can find it exclusively on Apple. But ultimately, the success of this classic Christmas show led to approximately 45 more animated Charlie Brown television specials.
Wow. I did not know there were that many. I know the Great Pumpkin one, but I didn't know there were that many.
And out of all of those specials, A Charlie Brown Christmas will forever have the distinction of being the very first animated Peanuts special, and for countless people, it remains to this day a beloved holiday classic.
Armchair psychologist.
And that brings us to the armchair. Thinking about this 60-year-old holiday special, if you had to name one element that you think helped to make it iconic, what would you pick?
Gosh. One element that made it iconic. Well, can I tell you? Let's take the monologue out of it.
Okay.
Because that was beautiful, and I think that was worth being in there. I agree with it. Let's take that out. One scene that was more moving to me and maybe contributed to it in a subtle way was actually the dance scene. So I'm going to say the music. The music was something that made it iconic. But as I was watching all those little kids dance, they were doing their own thing. They were just in the moment. It almost like brought a tear to my eye to see these little children being accepted, being who they were, and just each doing their own dance move and just joyfully being individuals, but still together. To me, that just really stood out to send the message that you don't have to be the same as everybody else. You can still have this group of friends and do your own thing and be individuals, but still belong together. So that's like kind of an odd answer. So I would say the general would be the music. I think that was super iconic and I loved it. But then this subtext, taking out the monologue, which I think
Because
is
that's
beautiful.
your number one.
That's my number one.
Yeah, that's your number one. Those are great answers. So I agree with everything you said. To name something else, I think, well, I'm cheating, right? I think part of it is just the fact that Charles Schulz and his team, but I'm giving most of the credit to Charles Schulz because it sounds like he's the guy who really stood firm on what he wanted. I think it was the fact that he was willing to break all the rules. He was willing to break all the rules in order to have this Christmas special that really did walk the walk. Because he said, the theme is we're against commercialization. We want to think about what Christmas is about. And he kept doing that. He kept going, oh, you all care that this is too religious for you all? I don't care. We'll do it anyway. Right.
Yeah.
You want this to be professional actors? I want children because I wanted it to be real.
Yeah.
I just feel like he kept going for no laugh track. I want that everything was about authenticity.
Oh, yeah.
And innocence and making it real and making it, I think, touch the audience, and I think it did.
It did.
It really did.
He was right.
And I just keep coming back to those children. I mean,
Sweet.
I love that he just kept using real children's voices and real children singing and just felt like that was beautiful. And you know what? Speaking of commercialization, we were talking off mic about one change that resulted from this. The fact that it was anti-commercializing Christmas.
Yep.
And one of the things that came up in the show was how they wanted to have their aluminum Christmas tree because it was a big deal at the time.
Yes.
So tell them what happened.
So we were watching it and Brian turned to me. He's like, did you know that this Christmas special directly affected the sales of aluminum Christmas trees in America? Because it dropped off. He said it eliminated after this came out. People didn't want those aluminum Christmas trees because they associated that with commercialization.
Yes.
So that's fascinating.
It is. It tells you how much they took this to heart.
Yeah.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
a little animated Christmas special.
It was really sweet.
Well, I think that brings us to the end. Happy 60th anniversary to A Charlie Brown Christmas.
You guys should watch it.
Absolutely. Cheers to Charles Schulz.
Yes.
Lee Mendelson and Bill Melendez, who brought it to life. But most of the credit to you, Mr. Charles Schulz. Sparky, well done.
Well done. Cheers to you.
If you love what we do, please rate and review our show or become a supporter through Buy Me a Coffee or Patreon. Whether a single gift or recurring monthly donation, your support is what allows us to keep the tea brewing.
Subscribe on your favorite podcast app or the Scandal Water Podcast YouTube channel. And follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Show notes are available at our website, scandalwaterpodcast.com, where you can also access the merch store and more.
This episode was executive produced by Candy Thomas, that's me, and Ashley Raymer Brown.
That's me.
It was researched and written by Candy Thomas and edited by Ashley Raymer Brown.
A special thank you to Josh Martin, who wrote, composed, and performed the Scandal Water theme and other music. Matt C. Adams, who created the artwork, and Joshua Reith, who designed our website and provides ongoing technical support.
As a reminder, this podcast is purely for entertainment purposes. The thoughts and opinions of the host during each episode of Scandal Water are their own and do not reflect the opinions of any future guests, advertisers, or clearly professional psychologists. Thanks for listening.